Have been raised about the possible infringement of freedom of speech should this legislation be adopted to criminalise hate speech and hate crimes. The NGOs as well as the South African Liaison Office today also held a workshop, of course, on the prevention and combating of hate crimes and the hate speech bill in Cape Town. For more on this, we now cross over to our reporter in Cape Town, Vanessa Poonah. A very good evening to you, Vanessa. Unfortunately,
good evening to you.
Oh, great stuff. Okay, essentially just tell us what essentially has been proposed in this bill and what sort of terms have also been proposed in this in terms of addressing and eliminating discrimination as well as racism.
Yes, a very warm good evening to you, and you rightfully said just now in your introduction there that of course this international research group SALO has held this workshop here in Cape Town. Of course, delivering the keynote address was the Deputy Minister for Justice as well as Constitutional Development, John Jeffrey. And essentially what this bill is aiming to do is to criminalise racism as well as discrimination. Now, we know that in South Africa over the past couple of months and years we have seen quite an increase, and according to those in the there's been 59% of utterances have been levelled towards black people and non-South Africans. So the issue of racism, discrimination on all grounds, whether it be age, whether it be gender, religion, sexual orientation, etc., those will all be covered in this bill. Now, I know that when I asked the Deputy Minister whether, for example, the existing legislation that is in place, the rights enshrined, for example, in the Bill of Rights, if that is not sufficient to address the incidences that we have seen happening, just a few names come to mind, such as the Penny Sparrow case of Vilapi Kumalo. Here in Cape Town, for example, a few years ago, there was the case of a domestic worker in Tableview whose employer's boyfriend had spat on her and called her the K word, saying that existing legislation in South Africa manages this problem on a civil matter, but not criminalising it. Now, as part of this bill, what could happen is there will be stiffer sentences. For example, a first offender could face a fine as well as 3 years imprisonment. Of course, repeat offenders could face as much as 5 years in prison. Now, a number of people have been participating in this panel. One of them, of course, is a gender activist from the Free Gender Movement. And that, of course, is Funeka Soldat, and she was saying that their movement specifically welcomes the introduction of this bill, saying that not just here in Cape Town but countrywide, lesbian women have been targets of discrimination, to the point where a number of lesbian women have been attacked, verbally attacked, brutally killed because of their sexual orientation, and saying that, for example, from that point of view, from civil society in that activism space, they're welcoming the bill. Others, though, have questioned whether this bill will not be infringing on free speech, infringing on the right to freedom of expression, asking exactly why this bill needs to be passed into law. Now, of course, Minister Jeffrey is saying that all these issues have and will be dealt with in a public participation process, which is expected to kick off early in the new year. Some saying that this bill is 23 years too late, saying that it should be part and parcel of South Africa's transition to democracy, and of course others saying that they do hope that this bill is passed into law before the elections next year.
In terms of the different rights groups that have been in attendance at the bill, some of course are bringing forward the issue that this could infringe on the freedom of speech that South Africans have. On the other hand, others are in support of that. Just take us through the differences that were brought forward in this bill proposals.
Indeed, and all one has to do these days is to just open a social media page. We know that quite a number of these utterances, hurtful and harmful utterances, have been made on social media platforms such as Facebook, as well as other Twitter and so on. And some of the discussions today focusing around the rights then and also the responsibilities of tech companies when it comes to monitoring, to policing what people are saying on social media. So yes, there have been varied responses. I know, and I've read up a bit, that some sectors of society, for example, are very concerned about the impact of this legislation on people's freedom to say what they think. Now, Minister Jeffrey is making an analogy saying that, for example, when a brick is thrown at a mosque, it could be construed currently as a simple case of malicious damage to property. But when this law is passed, if the state can prove that someone has thrown the brick at the mosque because they have a problem with or dislike Muslim people, and the state can prove that, of course, then this law will be able to tackle the issue of discrimination, hate speech and hate crimes. And of course, you know, we are in South Africa, we come out of a troubled past, a past of colonialism, a past then, of course, of apartheid. We have a diverse section of society, people from all walks of life living in this one country. And this bill and the laws that they aim to bring into effect sometime next year, if the matter is passed, is to create a society where people can be tolerant, where people are tolerant of views, of people's belief systems, and where no one will say or do anything that could cause harm physically or emotionally to anybody based on a various number of issues. For example, mentioned early on, issues of sexual orientation, issues of religion, issues of whatever people may have in their view. For example, discrimination against people with disabilities. It's wide-reaching. Some believe, of course, that this bill could be too far-reaching.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening. That was SABC reporter Vanessa Poonah, just giving us some of the details around the hate crimes and the hate speech bill and the proposals around that.